Hi there, welcome to this build of a 40-inch wingspan Keil Kraft Gypsy. Now it's a lovely 1949 design by Bill Dean. What we're going to do is we're going to crack on with this today, and you can see that we've got this in a pretty advanced state now, and I'm really excited with how this is starting to look, how it's starting to take shape. And one of the main last building things we're going to do, and that is the main wing. And I've had to print my own plans out from AutoZone to get a 40-inch wingspan, which it should be, because it's 38-inch on the plans, which just... Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this set out on the building board, and we're going to start to build this up today and get this wing finished. Right, well, I've got the plans now on my flat board, and I've checked it's flat with a straight edge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out the slots that need to be put into the trailing edge for these ribs to fit down into. Now, I've pinned the leading edge in place, and I didn't want to put pins all the way along, and I'm very mindful that if I push too hard I could bow it forward and get a incorrect kind of measurement down here. So I put a pin either end, and I've put in this straight edge against it with pins. So now this won't flex at all or move. It's nicely set in place, and I've only got the 2 pins in it. So what I'm doing now is I've got the ribs laid out in the right order, W5, I'm pushing it up against the leading edge, over the plans, like that, and then once it's lined up, let's get it right, what I'm doing is I'm just marking around the end of the rib there, just nice and carefully, and we can see now we've got the bit that we need to cut out. So we've got W4, and we just push that up against the leading edge, do this again, and then make sure that's lined up nicely, and then we just draw around it. Easy done, and then we'll just go along with the scalpel and we'll cut all these bits out. Right, well, I've been through and just cut with a scalpel those little bits of balsa that needed to come out for the ribs to slot in. And now is probably a good time to check that our wing is symmetrical. So we've cut out the slots for this wing, all line up with the ribs. So let's just turn it over and see if it fits on this side, or whether the wing on this side is a little bit different. Well, that is quite impressive because it all adds up exactly. We could use this piece of balsa on either side now because they are very symmetrical, which with old plans you don't know how they'll have been drawn up by hand probably, and they've been copied and printed, and you know, you don't know what process they've been through. So for them to have stayed symmetrical is quite good, really, but always worth checking the plans. So right, I'm going to get this pinned back in, and then I'm going to get all the ribs in and the spars in, and we'll have a look at gluing this up. Right, well, this is all put together now. The only thing that we haven't got is the wingtip, which I'll put on after once I've trimmed the spars. And I'm not sure about this W1. I might leave that until I actually join the wings, or I might use this dihedral brace, but I'm going to get the rest of it put together first. As with the front leading edge here, where I put that ruler, I've done exactly the same here with this straight edge, just pressing it up against this trailing edge here to make sure that it's nice and straight, and I haven't sort of warped it a little bit with the ribs, and I've got pins holding that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go along and glue all of the ribs, and I'm going to be using my thin CA, and I've just got my 2 small metal blocks, and I'll just put these in place just to make sure that the ribs are exactly vertical, and then I'll go along and I'll just drop some CA in the 4 places it needs to be. These ribs are a little bit sloppy in places, the laser cutting, so I'll probably have to go around and just touch some of them up with a little bit of thick CA just to fill a little bit of a gap. And on W1 here, the slot, the laser cut slot seems to be slightly out, so I'll probably need to modify that. But we'll get this glued up now and we'll have a look once it's done. Right, now this is all glued up and I have glued W1 using the dihedral brace. When I do the left wing, I won't do that. I will leave that rib loose so that when I put the wings together, I've got a little bit of movement in that rib, so I can get the dihedral just as it should be and not what this dihedral brace says it should be, which may not be right. I've cut the tip here and I haven't put it on because I need to just sand that. There's a little bit of that spar sticking out there. And it's funny because this isn't quite high enough, just the same as on the tail. This balsa isn't quite thick enough, so I'll get out of my scrap box some nice soft 1/16 balsa and just put a little piece on like that, just to bring it up to the correct height that it should be. So, but I'll put that on in a minute. I'm going to take this off the board now, and you see I've got the gussets in as well, just to give it a bit of rigidity when it comes off the board, so we're not doing any twisting and damaging. So hopefully this should come off easy enough. There we go. Oh, that's nice. And the test, is it flat? Yeah, looks nice and flat. Where that shows. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is just clean up this end, and then we'll get that end piece put on. Just a little bit of the spars sticking proud, so we can get that on there like that, and then we'll put this aside and do the other one. There we go, I've got that wingtip on there, and you can see just a little bit of nice soft 1/16 balsa just to bring that up to the profile of the rib. So as I said, I'll get the other wing done. Right, well, I've now got the two wing skeletons complete. I haven't done any of the cleaning up, the sanding, the profiling. I would much rather do that when I've got the wings joined and the wings as a whole finished, and I can kind of see it in its entirety. So we're going to line these up and get the dihedral right, which is 92mm on the terminal rib. But that terminal rib is angled, so we need to pick a point and make sure it's the same on both sides. I'm going to use this top spar, so just where the top spar meets the rib. Now the other thing we need to do is make sure that this central top, or not central, but this top spar here is dead straight with the top spar on the other wing, so it's like that. Because these wings taper, they taper from the front and from the back, so we don't want to get the front straight or the back straight, we want to get that central spar straight. And the other thing we need to do, once we've got it set up like that, before we glue it, what we want to do is we want to make sure that there's no twist. And if we get down like this, and we can, it's better probably from where the camera is in front, and we can look from a central position, we can scan our eyes from the underside, and we should see the front spar lined up nicely with the trailing edge. And if we look over to that side, it should be exactly the same. So we can tell essentially if there's a twist in the wing or if just one wing's twisted. So that is a really, I mean, to my mind, that is one of the most important things to do if we're going to get a nice flying plane without some kind of twist in it. So I'm going to get this set up now, and then we'll have a quick look at it before I hit it with the CA. Okay, this is perfectly lined up now, and I'm really pleased with how it's looking. And I'm just going to check it once more, and then I'm just going to glue it. I'm going to glue it first without the dihedral braces in, and then I will slip the dihedral braces in and glue it before I move it. I won't try and move it without them. Well, that's exciting. Getting the wings finally glued together, and they've gone together really nice. They're lovely and square, I suppose. There's no twist anyway. And we can see that central spar. Hopefully you can see that's nice and straight across the two wings. Now I've still got to do some profiling. I haven't done anything really other than cut a little bit of the bulk off these wingtips, and we need to be careful doing this with a knife, but we can just go and cut the gross balsa off there so that we're not doing quite so much sanding. I'm also going to take my David plane and I'm going to run down. I'm going to do the wingtips first, and then I'm going to run down this back edge and just make that a nice trailing edge. And I'll probably take off the corners on the leading edge to get that nice rounded ball nose on the leading edge. So I think what we need to do now is to try it on the fuselage and see how it looks. I mean, it's blowing a gale outside still. It's really unpleasant weather, so it's not really weather to go outside and start sanding, but this is the first time I've had this on here. Oh, that looks nice. Just sliding back a little bit, and if we get the tail on, hopefully that's all in camera. I think it is, isn't it? If we get the tail the right way round, it will help. Wow. And now we can see what this Gypsy is really about. Well, I think I've got to a point now where I'm going to draw this video to a close, because with the weather outside I can't go out and do the sanding, which is what's needed next, and I think it's going to be like this for a while. So like I say, I'm going to draw this video to a close, and I think in the next video I'll get the wings sanded, and I've got to think about the attachment points, not only for the main wing, because we haven't got any dowels or gussets or anything to take those dowels, and also for the tail as well, because we haven't done anything with the attachment of the tail. And I need to build a dethermalizer, or yeah, to fit a dethermalizer to this. So I think in the next video, I think that's what I'm going to be looking at doing. Getting the wings, the tail fitted, and that dethermalizer in place. So anyway, I hope you found this video interesting and useful, and please come back, see how we get on in building this, or pulling together now, this lovely Keil Kraft Gypsy.